All right, welcome back to Scareticulous. So, today I'm going to be reviewing The Black Phone 2. If you guys have not seen the first Black Phone, I'll sum up the plot very quickly. It's about this kid named Finn who is kidnapped by this serial kidnapper called the Grabber. And he's got this weird mask that changes from like a smile to a frown throughout the film. I guess he's got different components for the mask. Anyway, so he also has this sister named Gwen, and she has these dreams where she can kind of like see premonitions for things. She's got like psychic abilities, I guess. She inherited this gift from her mother, who committed, well, unaliving, shall we say. Their father is abusive, and basically Finn has to figure out how to escape this underground bunker that he's trapped in by the Grabber. And the way that he does this is through this phone that's on the wall, just, you know, inexplicably, of course, there's just like a black phone for no reason on the wall, because the story has to happen. And through this phone, he gets communications from deceased children who were killed by the Grabber, which is an interesting concept. Very interesting little plot there, right? And so through their help, he's able to escape the Grabber and, you know, save the day, rescue all the, you know, well, not rescue the kids, but I guess, you know, salvage their corpses or whatever, so their, you know, their families are put at ease or whatever. And anyway, that's basically the first film. The Grabber was killed by Finn in the first movie. I should say, spoiler alert if you haven't. I mean, if you're seeing a review for the Black Phone 2, you're probably kind of already aware of the events of the first movie, so I don't think it's really spoiling anything. So the Grabber is dead now, right? So how could you make a sequel? Well, there's these dreams that Gwen is having that are very creepy. We don't really know what's going on, but she seems to be communicating with her mother, but in the past. Just these very bizarre communications, and we don't really know, you know, what's going on there. And Finn, he's getting like calls. Just randomly, like, because there's pay phones back then, since 1982. Basically, 4 years have passed since the events of the first movie. And Finn is getting these phone calls, and he basically is telling them, like, he can't help them out. He doesn't want to do this. You know, whenever Gwen tells him she has a bad dream, he's like, look, you just go back to sleep. It's okay. You just had a bad dream. It's fine. And he doesn't want to deal with it, right? He doesn't want to deal with the possibility that there may be another, you know, giant task ahead of them that requires both their, let's just say, gifts, because it's not really said like explicitly like what Finn has, but I think by the end of the first movie, we can kind of deduce that he is able to communicate with the dead in some form or fashion. He can hear the phone ring when other people can't. Gwen has these dreams, and they either give her visions of ghosts that have died, or, you know, give her information of things that are happening now, or in, you know, something that might happen in the future. Basically, it's kind of open-ended, right? But basically, they're windows into the, you know, the paranormal and the unknown. So Gwen starts having these dreams where her mother worked as like a counselor at this camp, and so she gets the idea that they should go work for this camp, Gwen and Finn, and to try to see like what's going on, because Finn's starting to get the phone calls again, Gwen's starting to have the dreams, and so it's kind of leading to this camp. So they go to this camp, and, you know, she starts having the dreams of the ghosts. There's lots of creepy stuff happening. Finn's getting the phone calls again, and that's when he gets the phone call from the Grabber, and he realizes that the Grabber now can interact with them in a paranormal sense because he's now a ghost, or I guess essentially he's a poltergeist haunting this camp. And so what they have to do at this point, the plot basically revolves around them saving the children who were killed in the past, and that is going to, you know, get rid of the Grabber, right? That's basically the plot. So now that I've gotten the plot out of the way, I'll just dissect everything, you know, one by one, and just kind of go through, you know, methodically each aspect of this film, and hopefully that will give you guys a good sense of, you know, whether you'd want to see this movie or not. So first off, I'm going to describe the style of this film as retro film snow core, or snow retro film core, whichever you like. Basically, there's lots of sections where, you know, Gwen will be having a dream, and then the film changes to like something you're watching like a Super 8, or like, you know, an old like home video, you know, where it's very like grainy, and, you know, the footage is very shaky. And so it doesn't look like a VHS, but it looks like one of those old, you know, Super 8 film reels or whatever. Like, it looks kind of like that. So the film language basically tells us that's when she's dreaming. That's when Gwen is dreaming, is when she has that kind of retro film filter just like appear over the film. So it's a little bit contrived, but I like that it, you know, it works into the language of the film. That works fine. So we kind of know like when it's a dream and when it's real life, right? Now, that's fine. Also, it's very snowy for like 4/5 of this film. It takes place, you know, in this camp, but there's like a blizzard coming through, and it's basically going throughout the whole, like, I don't know if it's like a 2 days or whatever that they're there, where they basically have to like survive this, and, you know, they have to try to get back home, you know. So it's a kind of a very cool kind of film where it feels like, you know, there's a lot of snow, it's very dark, you know, it's very tense as well, and very, you know, scary at times. But there's also a lot of times where it's just very casual. Like they kind of let go of a lot of the tension, even though there is like this like demonic spirit that's like haunting the place. You don't really feel that much, unless Gwen is dreaming. When she's dreaming, then there's the tension. So the worst thing I can say about this movie is I don't feel like there's an overwhelming sense of dread while watching it. Or like horror. Like I don't feel like the grabber is gonna like come jump out at any time, because technically this stuff only happens when Gwen is dreaming. And I'm gonna get into like the rules of this film and why it kind of confuses me a bit in a second, once I get through the other sections. So there's also, so that's the visual style is on point. I like the visual language of the film. I think it's very well shot, very beautiful shots, beautiful locales. The music has this kind of, you know, synth wave kind of poppy kind of sound to it, which is very appropriate for the time. This is early 80s, so they're trying to like, and yeah, you know, that retro film core aesthetic I described before, it kind of matches that visual style. So the visual and the audio are very on point, very well done. The acting was very well done. I will say for the characterization, it was great. It was amazing. Now there is going to be an issue here I'm going to describe in a bit, but the characterization of Finn and Gwen as it relates to their arcs that continue from the first movie, and also because of the trauma that they were dealing with from that first movie, from like their father, how, you know, Finn's experience down in the grabber's basement, from their mother dying, all that stuff is going to bubble to the surface, and we're going to see like a very interesting and kind of refreshing look at their psychological profile, you know, especially Finn. His character is very developed because he's kind of developed this habit of, they've kind of flipped things a bit, because in the first movie he was bullied a lot, you know, when he was younger. The first movie takes place like 4 or 5 years ago, so he's a lot younger in that movie than he is now. Now he looks like he's like 18 years old or something. So now it's kind of flipped, and we kind of open the movie with him beating up this kid. It's kind of interesting how he's kind of taking lessons from the first movie, you know, stuff that he learned from like his friend in that movie, but he's applying it wrong. You know, he's applying it in kind of a maladaptive kind of way that's kind of worsening a lot of his trauma and his personality quirks that, you know, because he's developing into a man, right? So you're gonna start learning lessons, and things are gonna start developing your personality more as you age, and he's learning a lot of the wrong lessons, it seems, you know? So there's very interesting developments with that. I give them full brownie points for developing the characters. The father's back. He's not the antagonist abuser that he was before, but he's still kind of part of the equation, so I like that they kind of kept him in as being relevant to Finn and Gwen's arcs. There's also this camp owner who is also integral to the plot. I'm not going to get too much into him, but, you know, he knew various things about things. I'm not going to spoil it. This is a non-spoiler review, so, you know, don't worry. But he is integral. There's a lot of, like, you know, inner workings of this movie, emotionally speaking. They develop the emotion very well. Now, here's my nitpick about the movie. They established that the grabber is now a ghost, right? And he's basically a poltergeist, and he's haunting this camp. But he comes to Gwen in her dreams, and he's also able to communicate with Finn on the phone, right? So we've established that, you know, he's basically a haunting entity, right? And this movie basically turns things on its ear a bit, because in the first movie, the apparitions, the ghosts, were not able to affect anything in the real world, right? They were able to communicate with Finn. They were able to kind of, you know, influence things, make the phone ring, you know, things like that. Very simple, like haunting tricks, you know, almost like parlor tricks almost, right? But in this movie, they basically turn the grabber into Freddy Krueger, right? And he's not able to just communicate. He's now able to physically affect Finn and Gwen and everybody else, in fact, in the real world. Because when he starts haunting Gwen, he comes to her in the dream, she's walking around, right? She's like sleepwalking and sleep dreaming, and her dream world basically looks like the real world. And so it's kind of like, okay, so why does the dream world look like basically the same as the real world? Like, it might as well just be filmed as the real world and not with this retro film filter over it. But that notwithstanding, basically the grabber's able to, like, you know, lift Gwen up off the ground, fling her around, you know, like just like, you know, twirl her up in the air, do crazy things. He can stab. If he stabs you while you're dreaming, then you basically get stabbed for real. It's basically like Freddy Krueger. It's Freddy Krueger rules in A Nightmare on Elm Street, right? Now, here's my problem, is that the way that the grabber works is basically just an invisible man. Like, that's the way he works in the movie. Like, there's one part of the movie, spoilers, where he basically tries to strangle somebody, right? And he's strangling someone while, like, he's a ghost, right? But he takes off his belt to strangle this person, and they're getting strangled like in the real world. Now my question is the belt also a ghost? Like, how does the ghost belt work? Like, like, is it just literally? Because, like, listen, if you're a ghost in a movie, or if you're just a ghost in general, you do have maybe limited powers, like physically speaking. You're able to push things around, like push a chair, move this, hold this up in the air. But I feel like there's a limited amount of, like, tactile maneuvers you can actually do. And there's probably, like, a limited amount of, like, physicality that you're able to achieve as a ghost, right? Because what separates a ghost from just a human being that's invisible? I feel like that's a very appropriate question to ask, because at certain points in this movie, I feel like I'm just watching them fight an invisible man. And if that's the case, then why didn't they just make him visible? Like, why couldn't? Because they don't actually treat this with the same Freddy Krueger rules. Because in A Nightmare on Elm Street, if you touch Freddy Krueger in your dream, he manifests in the real world, right? And you're able to see him. Everyone can see him. It's like, whoa, where did this guy come from, right? And so that's a very, you know, simple rule to understand. But in this movie, that rule doesn't exist. He's just roaming around, like, doing various things, trying to kill people, but nobody can see him. But he's there. So then he's just invisible. You know what I mean? He's not a ghost. It's just nobody can see this ghost that's basically running around like an actual person. Now, if he was doing things that were, you know, more like floaty, like ghost-like, like stuff that was more of like a general maneuver, like getting pushed, you know, like force pushed or something like that, or whatever, you know, something like that, I could buy more as like a ghost mechanic. But if you're taking your ghost belt out and strangling people with it, I'm like, what are they getting strangled with? Are they actually getting strangled with a belt? You know, or like, and there's one part where they actually grab him by the leg, and you can see them, like, grab his leg, but the leg's invisible. So it's like, is he there? Like, is he actually physically there? So I'm a little confused by, like, the ghost rules in this movie, and that kind of bothered me. It kind of took me out of it a little bit. There's one part where Finn, he doesn't really choose to, like, you know, really get involved and help the kids out. Like, there was not, like, that moment, you know, like in the moment in the story where the main character actually decides, yes, I'm gonna, you know, take on this task, I'm gonna take on this, you know, because in a lot of storytelling, you need the main character to choose to take on the task, right? They need to take on the role of the hero. And there's not really that moment where that happens. He just kind of chooses to do it randomly. And it's like, okay, I guess we're not going to deliberate on this. He's not going to actually come to the decision to do that. They developed him emotionally, but they didn't really develop that part where, you know, in a traditional storytelling sense, where he's actually choosing to progress the story. There's also something where Gwen, she's choosing to fight back, quote unquote, against the grabber in her dream. And I feel like she gets all this power out of nowhere, and I don't really know why. Like I just feel like she just chose to do it. She just chose to, like, fight back, and it's like, okay, so couldn't you have done that the whole time? Like, why did you wait? You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like they just randomly kick in because the story has to play out that way. But they don't really get, like, really strong motivation to do these things. So overall, I liked the movie. I thought it was fun. Some of the story mechanics and how the ghost stuff works kind of confused me a bit. It kind of threw me off, so it kind of took me out a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, but kind of wish you developed this a little bit more. Like maybe if they brought the grabber into the real world and he was like this actual visible monster that everyone could see. The fact that nobody else could see him but Gwen in the dream, it kind of like, it's almost like everyone's looking around like not even knowing what the hell's happening. You know, like what is the grabber here? Like, you know what I mean? Like no one can really know. There has to be that moment where everyone can see the grabber and be terrified, but it doesn't really happen. They try to like kind of bring back some of that, you know, scariness that the grabber had from the first movie, but honestly, I feel like he was creepier in the first movie. In this one, they kind of make him more into, you know, kind of your stock, you know, serial killer villain like Michael Myers or something like that. He doesn't really even have like many one-liners or anything. Like if you're going to turn him into Freddy Krueger, like he should have more one-liners. He should have more things to say. There should be more emphasis placed on entertainment, him fucking with people. And I don't feel like there's a lot of that. So, I mean, I feel like, you know, they did a good job making this an emotional movie where they develop the characters that way. But in terms of like the scare factor, yeah, there are parts where it gets pretty scary. But then there's like long lulls where they like, it's just talking and there's a lot of emotional development. And that's great. If you like a more emotional horror movie, this kind of dipped into the emotional kind of horror, you know, where it's kind of like shoegazy in a way, where it's a little bit like depressing, which I know a lot of horror movies get depressing, but I don't know. I would have liked if they focused a little bit more on like the thrilling aspects of it and just made it more fun. So, I mean, if they were going to make like a third one of these, I would want them to just like, okay, you established all the emotional arcs. We got all the characters down. Now can we just focus on having fun with it? Like just have as much fun with this character as possible, you know? Like just do something fun without having us think so goddamn much about what they're going through emotionally. Like that's not why I watch a horror movie. You know, I'll watch a drama if I want that, you know? And I feel like the first one, they kind of developed the character without pushing the emotion too much on you. Like it wasn't overly plotting, trying to like develop the character and like what they're going through emotionally and blah, blah. They kind of have those moments with like his best friend who died in the first movie. But in this one, it's like, oh my God, we got to go through. It's like we're in a therapy session. Like, and you're so angry because you're so scared, and you're scared because you couldn't protect your sister, and blah, blah. It's like, okay, I get it. All right. I feel like there's more like a shorthand way we could have communicated that without like overly explaining it exposition wise, you know? So anyway, I like the movie. I just think they could have pushed and massaged things a little bit more to make it more thrilling, make it more scary, and not focus so much on the more low-key aspects. We'll just put it that way. So yeah, I'll give the Black Phone 2 a 3.5 out of 5 skulls. I think it was entertaining. I just think they could have done a little bit more with it. So hopefully in the third one, they'll do a little bit more and have more fun with it. So I will see y'all next time on Scareticulous. Please leave me a thumbs up, and I'll see y'all next time. Later.